Hi, and welcome back to another episode of The Architecture of Health. I am Deb Voisin, and my guest this week is Heather Houston. She's a beloved community choir director, a recording artist, and a women's vocal empowerment coach. Heather has taught many people I know how to effortlessly sing, and I didn't even realize I've been listening to some of her gorgeous a cappella music. I hadn't even realized I'd been listening to it for years. One of Heather's gifts, besides being able to perform beautifully harmonious music, is that she helps people transform their own singing voice. Welcome to our show today, Heather.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Deb. So appreciate it.
So, I often share with the audience why I invited my guest. And the reason is the more I went through these surprising health journeys and learned how our most important movement is breath, and how often in modern culture we're doing things in compressed ways that our ancestors never did. I increasingly thought about the movement of the diaphragm and people saying, sing from your diaphragm, and yet not understanding what that meant until I learned also that in modern culture, the way we slouch in chairs and other ways we use technology and we don't walk so much, that we have become an exhale deficient culture, and often increasing exhale reset our pressure so things are have less effort. And I thought, oh my goodness, of course, all my trips to West Africa, people don't have much electricity. They're singing all day. They're effortlessly bursting out in song. And yet I'm in this evolving state. So I thought, wow, singing as a health practice, singing as a community connector. I thought I need to talk to someone who could give us an entry point into how could more of us use this as a tool to make ourselves, bring more peace and harmony to our lives. So Heather,
Mm.
how do you help people move towards accepting singing, getting comfortable singing, and just what kind of steps have you learned that it takes?
Mm. Well, just as you spoke about from the beginning, it begins with the breath, right? So much of it is about how do we tune in to our deep belly diaphragmatic breath rather than this short, small upper respiratory breath that we take, and that we hold. We hold our breath so much in our culture because we're so stressed all the time. And so one of the things that I begin with my students is how to take a deep diaphragmatic breath and then how to fully release the breath.
Mm.
It's so foundational for singing. And I think the other big piece in giving folks an opening into singing is to remind us that we as a human race have been singing together in community from the beginning of time as one living, breathing organism. It is our birthright. And we have, over the years, commodified music. We've made it a competitive sport.
Mm.
If you're not a superstar singer, like then you shouldn't be doing it. All these things that we have bought into, and it's not true. Like everybody can sing. You just have to take the time to be present. And that is the other piece of it, is how do we be present with this beautiful instrument and then be able to tune into it as a tool for healing and self-expression.
It's funny, I did take a few lovely voice lessons when I was using singing as I'm always looking for measures. How can I tell, like the frog in the boiling water, as you can't tell what you're shifting towards unless you have some external reference. So for a little while, I decided to use singing as a postural reference. I was like, if I'm
Mm.
singing better and better, then I'm getting better pressure in my abdomen, and my rib cage is moving and my neck is freeing. And I was really attracted to operatic, like
Yeah.
really and yet when I went to do it in front of someone, I fell apart.
Yeah.
The stress was just too much of a leap of the safety of this little cocoon I had
Yeah.
with my teacher to then branch out. So So, what is it that most people misunderstand? I mean, I heard you say a few of those things. One, we're
Yeah.
misunderstanding that it needs to compete with these commoditized superstar artists. We are
Yeah.
misunderstanding it as a connection tool that is our birthright.
Yeah.
Um, so how do you get people moving in? Okay, and you said the first thing you do is you help them become more present and start to really feel what a full breath is like.
Right. Right. So it's, part of it is impressing upon people that singing doesn't have to be performative, right? We're so trained in our culture and throughout the world that singing is performative and that others are going to judge it. We're going to judge
Mm.
ourselves, right? And so instead of having people focus on what they're producing on the outside, sure, we do get there over time, right? Um, but instead of having them focus initially on what they're producing, I'm having people focus on what they feel on the inside.
Mm.
What does the vibration of your voice feel like in your bones? What does your breath, your full breath, feel like in your rib cage? Right? Like, how does that bring us into the present moment? How does the vibration heal? How does the breath heal? So we're coming into a place of presence rather than like, what do we hear on the outside? Right? And like I said, we will get there eventually, but we start here. How does it feel? Like, chances are the singers that we love to hear the most in the world enjoy the feeling of their own voice. They are in love with how their voices feel inside their bodies, their physical bodies, their emotional bodies, their energetic bodies, right? They're not just singing out here to sing. Like, they love how it feels. So I like to tune people into, how do you fall in love with your voice? How do you fall in love with what you feel on the inside?
How do you? I want to know.
Well, you can take my course, my 9-week course called The Art of Mindful Singing. No, I mean,
I know, I'm serious.
yeah, and
I'm gonna go. Is that a Zoom? Is it like a live thing or is it re-recordings?
yeah, it's a live thing. So actually, I have a free session next Thursday, a week from today, so people can come and check it out
Oh my God.
if they want to do the 9-week series.
Okay, and that would be September 26th. Okay, anyhow,
Yeah. Anyway, yeah.
I'm there, by the way.
Okay, good.
Sign me up. The reason is this just strikes me. It's so similar in the world of movement. You know, as someone who kind of interrupted made choices to be a nerd and read all the time and not use my body. It really took finding a safe environment where I could just enjoy moving. And for
Mhm.
me in Kansas, the only place that felt that way was a gay bar when I was six, sneaking in when I was 17. I felt so safe. And
Uh-huh.
I just felt how great it was to dance. But then I would go out and look for other dance experiences, and it felt like they all had these containers, or that you had to be really good, and I was really, and eventually I found many more organic ways just to enjoy movement. And well, one thing I
Mhm.
noticed about West African culture, they have work songs, singing while you work. They
Yeah.
have
Yes.
the song when our bus ran out of gas and we're all pushing the bus. We have a song we're singing while we push the bus
Yeah.
down the road. So that's the first step, is take your class. I'm definitely going to do that.
Okay, good.
And in movement, when people are, again, we're already moving all the time. We're already breathing all the time. We're already
Yeah.
making sounds all the time. So the question is, how do we ramp into, make a gentle ramp? And one thing I
Hmm.
like to do is 1-minute dance parties,
Oh, there you
like
go. That's fun.
unobserved, alone
Uh-huh.
though, unobserved.
Uh-huh.
How do you bridge that gap between getting comfortable how you enjoy something alone, or to, and it sounds like you'll say something about the safety of creating a safe space.
Yeah. Yeah. Like to doing it in a group. Well, yesterday, I led my women's song circle. I had a free class yesterday. I had 25 women in a circle who didn't know each other, all new to each other. And so I begin by tuning them in to their voices, how I talked about. And then I really entrain them to rhythm, starting to just sing out and hear each other's voices. Another thing that helps people in a group to feel safe is to have the brain be entrained to a pattern, right? When the brain trains
Mm.
to a pattern like rhythm, then you go into more of a state of relaxation. So I make sure that I bring rhythm in from the beginning. Actually, my very first song will be a rhythmic song where I get people moving, like you're talking about, like the work songs, because then you're not thinking about the production of the sound as much as you are just like you're in the rhythm of it. And then I'll have them tune in and then I'll have them tune out again. There's this back and forth of how does the voice feel on the inside? How does it feel when we move? How does it feel when we hear the other voices around us also singing? How does it feel when we're all singing the same note up here? Can you feel the crown of your head? I get them just tuning in to different things that they can feel. And that helps them stay present, helps them kind of forget themselves and forget about the production of the sound as much. It's like, oh, what are you feeling now with the group? What are you feeling within yourself? Right? Yeah.
What I notice is how that, because you also described this kind of pinched breathing where it
Uh-huh.
doesn't go all the way through us,
Yep.
that's kind of also the primal protective,
Yeah.
and this is happening as a default posture more and more. So this softening up and out and around is perceptual and postural. It's a whole bunch of things. What
Yeah.
what I what gets me is I'll think it's great. I'm interacting with other people. My voice is brassy and I find who I am in the place of the choir. And then I get one really shrill, weird, discordant note. So, can you talk a little bit about what harmony versus discord? Yeah, where does that, how do you manage those things?
Yeah, well, I talk about in my circles how there is no wrong note, in those beginning circles. In my choir, I will not tell you that. My choir, I'm like, we are singing the right notes. It sounds like this but in those circles, it's like, it's okay to sing a note that might not be in the chord, and it's okay to be dissonant. Right. Consonant. And then to be consonant is when the harmonies are lined up and your body goes, ah. But what I've noticed is that if someone doesn't sing in tune or is like, we call it tone deaf, right? The more they come into a group and listen and feel the energy of the sound, the more they will begin to attune their instrument.
Mm.
Right. So when we are tuning our voices, it's not just with the ear, right? We are also tuning, we feel sound with our whole bodies. So I'll get my singers real close to each other. Sometimes I'll have them go back to back and feel the vibration of the sound in their bones. And so then those folks who might not be singing the note that everyone else is singing will begin to find it more and more consistently as they feel it in their bones. And so I do different practices to get the group there.
That is so wise. And what this is reinforcing in me is that in a state of stress we get this tunnel vision, and we might think our voice is all right here at the top of our throat,
Yeah.
versus we cannot resist sound. It is in us, it's through us, it's around us. It's
Yeah.
and every I read somewhere once that every cell of the human body has a filament to detect vibration.
Mm,
And what you're saying is this is a whole body experience.
right.
And when we diffuse the focus out amongst our tissues and the other things going on around us, we have it's just it'll be far it'll be effortless when we can let go of actually the things in the way. And it
Hmm.
sounds like what you're saying, one of the things in the way is us pushing and trying. And when I teach people
Yeah.
breathing too, the teaching people not to try to inhale, like that
Mm,
instead I flip it where we go first for the softest, longest exhale possible, and then let the inhale. Instead of I'm
yeah,
taking the inhale, I'm
exactly.
struggling for an inhale. Instead, just can you fully release all the air that's in you? So, like a
Right.
sponge where the water's been slow squeezed, whatever, out, it just fills
Exactly.
up. And
exactly. And I do some breathing practices like that with my singers.
honestly, it's sort of the opposite of the way things have been going, where someone's stressed and they say, take a deep breath, and they go,
Yeah.
and they're already too full. They're
Yeah, you got
already
to
too
exhale
full.
first. I know.
In fact, the science of this too is carbon dioxide is the powerful
Yeah.
anti-inflammatory, and when we
Yep.
have too much oxygen, there's actually quite a risk of having someone in the hospital on pure oxygen. It's inflammatory. It can
Yes.
cause
Yes.
a horrible outcome, and yet so getting our carbon dioxide levels
Yeah.
correctly, nasal breathing,
Hmm.
other things like that. So the exhale is part of also with the vagus nerve tone, the fight or flight systemic nervous system response, humming and
Hmm.
taking a full exhale. So, all of this helps us get to that grounded and calm state. Well,
Absolutely.
now that you've signed me up, and I'm definitely on board. So one thing about that safety, same with my movement practice, I found that once I wasn't just doing stuff in a group where sometimes I could override my own needs or feel self-conscious, I realized the importance of just taking that time alone to fully feel myself. As an artist and a teacher, where do you see private practice time versus participating in groups?
Mm. Personally or for everybody?
Both. Like one thing I heard from you is the beginners have a different mindset. You just want them to get in the game. You want them to
Yeah.
accept any sound that comes out is we're getting in the game, and that when you're leading your choir, your rigor and precision and alignment is
Hmm.
getting more. And so I kind of want to know
Yeah.
both, like the person who doesn't sing in a group, who doesn't have his, who's been afraid to sing, that
Hmm.
person, and then also what do you do?
Yeah. I would say the person who's afraid to sing, come take my class.
Okay, we're there.
Because you're on mute, nobody can hear you, and then you can just experiment with your own voice. That's the thing, is like just being able to play with sound, and what you feel in your body is so important to connect to your own sound. Oftentimes when people are afraid to sing, it's because they're afraid of what they're going to hear. They're afraid that it's going to sound bad on the outside. And I'm like, okay, it's not about that. Come in. What do you feel in here? Right. So just getting people tuned back in here. And, I needed to do that for myself yesterday. I was getting ready to teach this class and, planning. And my brain was a little scattered. And I was like, you know what, Heather, you just need to sit down and take out your shruti box and do some toning and humming and singing. And it just really got me grounded back in myself.
Mm.
Right. So my shruti box is an Indian instrument that holds a drone for us. So then we can explore the shrutis, the notes in between the notes, which in our Western culture we don't explore. We go do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, right? And in the Indian traditions, the North Indian raga singing, we're exploring those notes in between the notes. Ah, and hanging out in there. And the vocal folds love that. Our bones love it. It's nice and slow. And so I just sat down with my shruti box yesterday and just slid around and enjoyed the feeling. And after that practice, I felt more able to focus again. Because, like I said, my brain was getting a little scattered. What songs are we going to do? I had like 30 songs that I was choosing from. And I was like, oh, just come in here and then tune into what the group needs, right? And was able to tune in and create something really beautiful for the afternoon.
Wow. Wow. And then from in a movement context, as I help people reclaim ordinary movement as
Mhm.
an alignment tool, what we're heading towards is kind of like that sliding that you're talking about. Like the healthiest gait has this serpentine, I call it land shark,
Mm.
walking and running to have a little, and that there's got to be this fluidity from ground to crown. And what has happened is we've trained out. We've kind
Yeah.
of trained in the
Yeah.
do, re, mi, fa, sol, la
Yeah.
versus the
Yeah.
yeah. So
Right.
uh and so for you, sometimes even as a professional, you go back to just dropping all the way back in some time to yourself. Great. And then there's the safety of the you facilitating your on, and that's an online group or an in-person. They're both.
Yes,
You have both.
well, I have both. Yesterday was in person. Yeah, I had 25 women in my friend's backyard. Yeah, super fun.
Oh, that's awesome. One
Yeah.
thing I notice is I can feel so great toning in my shower. And
Mm,
the hearing, okay, this is a topic. You said that the gap sometimes is being afraid of what you're going to hear.
hmm.
And yet most of us don't really, when we hear our recorded voice, there's often initially a cringe factor of like, that's
Yeah.
not how it sounds to me.
Yeah, true.
But it's also like when I had a guest who was a dream interpreter, she said there's this paradox of dreaming, Catherine Bell, that the neuroscience behind it is like the only person who understands the meaning of your dream is you, but it's only through someone else hearing your dream that you'll know what your dream meant. Like there's this paradox of almost needing a mirror, almost needing people around for the loop to make it all the way through with a
Mm.
dream. And it
Oh,
sounds like
cool.
it. Like what do you what about recording or that dissonance where when we aren't used to hearing our own voice
Yeah.
and that I thought I
Yeah.
sounded different even
It takes,
talking. Yeah.
yeah, it takes getting used to for sure. Um, I recorded myself a lot as a kid, and I didn't like the sound of my voice, but I would keep recording because I loved to sing. And so I'd record and record. And what I noticed was over time was that I was able to refine. So I would hear things that I didn't like, I judged as like not pretty or like, what I wanted to hear. And I was able to begin to correct it, just on my own, just by listening. Um, and so I think there's power in that. Like the other day and yesterday in the circle when we were warming up, my voice cracked and I was like, haha, look, sometimes the teacher cracks too. Like it's okay. It's totally okay. Let's all play with cracking, like just do it on purpose. Like it's really okay. And to then like, oh, okay, so the next time, like how do we sing through that that scale of notes right there or that interval and not crack our voices? How do we do that? And so then I teach like how to do that. How do I do it for myself? How do I be more careful, more skillful next time so that I don't crack? So it's just this constant, not constant, but it's a course correct, right? And not with judgment, but just like, oh, that happened. Like, how can I do it different next time if I wanted to?
Hmm.
And kind of get curious about it and not from a place of judgment, but like, oh, I can do it differently.
I
Or
can do
yeah,
it differently,
I can do
right?
it differently. And I don't have to. Like some singers make an entire career out of yodeling. I mean, not yodeling, but like, doing that crack in the middle. Ah, like the Tarzan thing. Like they do it over and over and over. It's part of their signature sound. And then other voices are really clean and you will never hear a crack in the voice.
I want to talk about that because when the few great voice lessons I had learned to identify where I was, where I was stressing myself,
Yeah,
where I was, and then I started to be aware when I was listening to various music, wow, that singer, they're not going to last.
right. Oh,
That
you can tell.
sound is going to like stress out their throat
Yeah,
eventually.
absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
from a feeling good point of view, I can imagine cultivating more skillfulness and
Yes.
using our whole self so we aren't forcing
Yeah.
and
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 it's a,
and yeah, and being aware that we're in a culture where sometimes pain is or weakness even can become glorified. uh,
right. Oh yeah. Oh, I mean, Adele, classic,
Tell
like,
me, I don't even
oh, well, Adele has had two vocal nodule surgeries, polyps actually. She had the polyps because of that glorified pain in her voice. We love that. We love that heartache because we're not given permission in our culture to express grief. And so we make other people do it, and she does it. And the way she was using her voice was not sustainable. And she's had 2 surgeries. Now, thank God, when I listen to her sing, I'm like, oh, she's doing it. She's doing it. Like she's not straining her voice anymore as much. um, but yeah, it is a skill for sure to learn how to sing more cleanly and to teach our culture to grieve so that we're not expecting our artists to do it for us, you
And to
know?
move so that we don't have to make the all the athletes and dancers to get up and do it for us, where then they get
Right.
injured because it's all
Yeah.
coming out in this rush.
Right.
One
That's right.
interesting thing too, I'd learned, I took a brief sound healing class and I used some sound bowls and stuff to just unwind. And one thing I was surprised to learn when I was researching sound was that in shamanic cultures that are traditional, there are certain rhythms that entrain the group and that create this positive entrainment. And then if you veer off of that a little bit, they just cancel. They're like, nope, this
Mm.
that just this is going to be bad for everyone. Let's just not do it unless we're doing it. And the word you used was clean or with the intentional. And that's one reason I'm attracted to what you're talking about is as you get more skillful and you seek the alignment of the choir, it's kind of like in movement as well. When you get more skillful and the alignment improves with the most harmonious movements, most harmonious proportions, then you can do things you never thought you could do
Yeah.
in an effortless way. And
Yes.
I think that was one thing I never, being kind of pinched, forcing, afraid of singing person. From where I was, I could only imagine that singing just required more and more and more effort, kind of like athleticism,
Oh,
versus it
interesting.
less and
Uh-huh.
less in a way.
Yes.
It's kind of
Yes.
less and less. And same
It's
with
less.
my movement practice, the less I'm training my move. I mean, I'm training only very intentionally. I'm actually resting more and more. And now I can run faster than the fastest treadmill at the
That's
gym
right.
after
That's right.
hating running my whole life because
That's
I
right.
I was doing this extra when less is very freeing. So
Yeah, it's true. Same thing with the voice. It's more about that connection to the resonance, right? If you're connecting to the bone structure of the face and you have a vocal coach that can connect you to those points, then your breath is nice and open and supportive, but it's not forced. Nothing is forced. It's not about forcing the sound through the vocal folds like you were talking about. It's, like, why do people do that? Oh, I can tell when people are hurting themselves. There's this way that, when we inhale, it's so much of it is about the inhale and how we inhale, right? Are we allowing our vocal folds to relax as we inhale instead of going, right? And then as we go to sing, even though we're engaging the diaphragm, the support really comes from below the diaphragm, right? Like, so when vocal coaches say sing from your diaphragm, I think it gives people the wrong idea. When vocal teachers say sing from the diaphragm, we think, oh, we need to effort something with the diaphragm and we need to push. And that's not it at all. We are slowly moving the energy from below the diaphragm, the lower abdominals, which puts pressure on the diaphragm itself and helps it lift and have the pressure that we need for the vocal folds. But it's not about the diaphragm itself, like grabbing and pushing and efforting. So, yeah, right? It's the steadiness. And then we connect that up into the head, the crown of the head, the mask of the face, the roof of the mouth. And this is where we get the overtones. This is where the sound just billows effortlessly. And then when we have other voices to sing with, your voice wants to meet the other voices and be carried. Like when other vibrations meet other vibrations, they carry each other. And then you find that harmonic resonance. And it's just like, then you open a portal, right? When you have that experience, like with my choir, we open this portal where we're like, wow, we are one voice, not only with ourselves, but with the angels. It's like, what is happening right now? When everyone hits that place of effortlessness, effortless singing, it is so transcendent. I just took us
wow.
on a whole other
No,
journey, but there we go.
I'm right here with you. I mean, yes, and I'm right here with you. The interestingly, as I've learned more and more about movement, it's the physics physics described movement. And
Uh,
I've seen a thing where someone took a little lever or something, and they got the rhythm of it just so that it completely toppled this giant object. Like there was they hit a frequency that started to just amplify to the point something huge happened. And that sounds like that resonance you were building is something amazing can happen when the right frequencies are
yes,
building. And
yes.
that's one thing too I like. Once I learned to think of breath as like an ocean wave, it's always
Mhm,
happening and it's always shaping, and you know, something's always shaping something. The
mhm,
resonance of us helping each other
mhm.
expand. It sounds like you created this, facilitated this expansion in the group
Yes.
by using carefully selected uh, harmonies, it sounds like.
Yeah. Harmonies and practices that I bring to my choir. Yeah. Helps us get there to that effortless place.
Mm,
Yeah.
wow. And then also what the music we listen to.
Mm.
I've seen, I learned also while I got rid of, helped my son get rid of all of his chemical sensitivities, all of his food allergies. We
Amazing.
would use muscle testing with
Uh,
a, and or pendulums and things like that, or just how to get, when it's hard to feel what's authentically true, finding more ways to use our body to tell us, besides
mhm,
some giant rash,
mhm,
besides some getting sick, like how do we find more
mhm.
subtle ways to feel what's authentically true?
Yes.
And they've done research too using similar ways of measuring sort of what builds, what is it, power not force. There's a book, I can't remember, but I'll find there are nourishing vibrations and ones that cause stress and pain. So
Mm.
our choice of what to listen to can
Yeah.
have a huge effect on our point of view.
Absolutely. Have you heard of the book, The Mozart Effect? Fabulous book about the power of sound to heal. And I can't remember the author's name. It's been
No, I'll look it up.
probably 2 decades since I've read that book, but um, really explores what you're talking about, like the vibrations that are healing to our systems and the vibrations that are not healing to our systems, and that includes like studies of different types of music, right? And then also Dr. Emoto, the Japanese scientist with the water crystals, right? Similar kind of thing, like what kinds of sounds, vibrations, and also just even thoughts form beautiful crystals and create beautiful vibrations in our water systems in our bodies, and which ones create dissonance, right? So it's so it's so true. We got to be careful what we listen to, what we think, what we speak. I was going to say that is why most of the time the songs that I end up, well, not all of them that I write, but that I end up singing over and over again are the ones with positive affirmations or positive messages, because I don't want to be singing the ones over and over again that may bring me harm. Like maybe I was going through a moment of grief and that song needed to come through, but I find that I don't often sing it after it comes through or like is recorded on an album. Like I just need to leave it and not keep reliving that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's tricky for me. I'll get one song that just feels like,
Yeah.
and I'll play a few songs that I loop for hundreds
Yeah,
and
sure.
thousands and thousands of times. And
Sure.
I'm hearing what you're saying is be careful about whether you're wallowing in an
Right.
attachment,
Yeah.
or try. I should probably, not should is a funny word. A possibility of shifting my choice over time might help me change my state.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. I mean, there's so much power in like give yourself an hour, give yourself a day, give yourself, however long you need to grieve, and don't get stuck there. Right?
Yeah,
You
yeah, and
have
I
to
think
go through, but don't like one of the reverends that I listen to, Reverend Deborah Johnson, she talks about like you have to go through it. You have to go through your healing. You can't go around. She's like, but when you go through, like don't set up camp there. Like Don't set up your table and your little cook station. Like, just like keep moving through till you to the
That's
other side.
hilarious. This is no wonder I had such a hard time. I actually, during COVID, because let's see, I'd initiated a divorce. My house was in a fire. My parents died. And then all sorts of other, all in a year. So had an unimaginable amount of grief, and my communities weren't meeting. And I was this loud anti-vaxxer, so nobody wanted to talk to me. So I literally set up a camp. I literally did. I would call it Camp Cry. I said, roommates, don't come in. This is Camp Cry. I would get my orange juice and milk and salt and just let it go, just let her rip. And so interestingly, I was both not doing exactly what she said not to do, but given the scale of the grief, I think it worked beautifully to get. I would be
Yeah,
done after like half a day. I give myself half it, and I'd
there
be
you
totally,
go.
yeah. Camp
Yeah.
cry. It was,
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and that's important for sure. Just don't stay there for
but
months.
don't stay there for. I came out of the room eventually, and most of all, I gave myself permission because really, you're right. There are not these grief containers.
Yeah.
And in the old days, most people were going to some kind of a church or they had some kind of,
Yeah.
and so I'm glad you're facilitating these transformative experiences for so many people.
Yeah. Yeah. And people will cry and grieve in my circles, online and in person. And in my choir, like people will be moved to tears and they will emote. And that's part of the beauty of singing, too, of sound. We know that, like, singing and music in general connects us to our emotional worlds. And we're not often taught that it's okay to be connected to our emotional worlds. And I think that's why music is such a powerful modality to get us there, right? We get to feel together and grieve together and move and then transform the energy.
Mm,
It's powerful.
transform.
Hmm.
And what kind of transformations have you seen? I mean, you've told me that there were these times in your life where your singing had to transform, or you used your singing to transform, or any stories of clients that you worked with. I would love to hear a little more about that.
Yeah, well, I found for myself that singing with women, when I sang with Dis-moi, which that trio,
It's amazing, guys. How do you spell that? DISMOI.
MOI.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Dis-moi. And we're on SoundCloud. You can't find Dis-moi on Spotify. We didn't release there, but um when I started before that I was singing jazz and my music was very performative. And I was in a persona when I was performing.
Mm.
Right. And then when I started singing with these women and speaking the truth of my heart, then I began singing from my heart and writing music
Mm.
from my heart and and began feeling so much more authentic in my expression as a singer. And so that was one of my transformative experiences, was really being able to feel safe in a container of women to speak my heart and to then sing from my
Mm.
heart. Yeah, so that was a big piece for me. I've seen women come more into the truth of who they are. I think that is the main thing. Like, women in particular. I mainly work with women. I work with all genders for sure, but primarily women. And that is because I feel like the energy of the feminine on the planet is still not in balance, right? We are still out of balance and we still need to uplift that feminine energy. So it's kind of one of my paths this lifetime, is to uplift the voice of the feminine. And I find women, the more they sing together in circle, the more safe they feel to express their authentic selves, and the more safe they feel to be an expression of their authentic selves and hold containers for other women to then come in and be more expressions of their authentic selves. Just because I also train women on how to lead song circles. I do a song leader training. So I'm also leading other women in how do you lead your own circles that feel authentic to you. Like, you're not going to be just a copy stamp
Mhm,
Heather,
mhm.
right? You're going to do it your way. And then women will come to your circle and they feel more free to express. And so it's just this ongoing opening and uplifting of expression for women.
And I like your emphasis on uh, feminine energy, meaning I recall deciding upon almost a masculine set of energies when I was young. I was like, I'm just
Mhm.
going to be good at work. I'm going to be good at math. I'm going to become an engineer. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
And I the feminine aspects were not as obviously rewarded.
Yeah.
There
That's
wasn't
right.
as much obvious reward, so I was like, I'm pretty much not a woman.
Yeah.
And then honestly, motherhood, I was like, I am a woman. Like
Yeah.
I can't pretend I'm not a woman. And
Yeah.
uh and so really the power of this uh receptive and thoughtfully projecting, like rather
Mhm.
than the more linear
Yeah.
uh hunt, the chase, the hunt,
Right.
the
It's more
logical.
cyclical. The feminine energy,
Exactly.
yeah, it's more cyclical. We're following the rhythms of the moon and the stars and the rhythms of nature and the elementals, it's this more earth-based connection and synchronous how do you call it, and harmony. It's like, harmony with the earth is that more divinely feminine energy. And I find that a lot of women are beginning to express that more and more in the world rather than from this very linear pushing, and that's the same thing with the voice that I'm talking about. Like, how do we find that place of resonance and allow the sound to be effortless rather than forcing pushing? It's again, it's just so cultural.
And an interesting parallel in the industrial medical world is going to one location because the pain is appearing in the knee, say, and then, well, I guess our only choice when it gets bad enough, I guess we got to replace that knee. Well, you haven't changed anything about the situation that created that problem. You haven't created the support throughout the whole rest of your body that is what culminated in that. And what that is
Right.
is the problem was probably from the very beginning an isolated one of isolation. Like something is happening where this piece has to take way more pressure than the rest of us. So the
Yeah.
answer is actually in the rest of us. The answer
Yes.
the answer is in the in the
Right.
in the everywhere else. And that's one reason I call this show The Architecture of Health, is
Hmm.
health is an environment. Even
Yes.
more with my son, it was the environmental changes that had the biggest. Well, breathing was the number one change.
Right.
With the We doubled the size of his airway by doing some expansive
Oh, did you
body
do the
work.
elf?
It was a similar to Alpha's BioBlock.
Okay.
That, along with the tongue and nasal
Yeah.
breathing stuff, and just having your airway
Yeah, open.
size
I'm doing
change.
that right now. I
Oh,
don't have it in right now because I knew I was doing an interview with you, but I wear my ALF, the palate expander, because everything was blocked for me. I had a tongue tie. I got a
oh my
tongue tie
gosh! And
release.
you're a singer. Oh my
Yeah, I know.
gosh!
I know. And actually, my oromyofascial specialist said that the reason why my face isn't all deformed is because I'm a singer.
Oh my
Sing-
gosh!
yeah, singing really saved me.
That is an incredible story. I
Yeah.
love that. And I know
Yeah.
I should probably go get Alpha. One thing I have maybe shared before with the audience is these top and bottom teeth never closed my entire life. I was a mouth breathing thumb sucker
Uh-huh.
as a kid, and they never closed. And
Yeah.
then I did weird face exercises for double chin
Yeah.
stuff, and my
Uh-huh.
teeth closed
Oh, wow.
for free.
Uh-huh.
Two minutes
Amazing.
a night. So
Yeah.
wow, I can't wait to see what singing is going to do.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to
Yeah.
have some kind of way to tell a before and
Yeah.
after. It's going to be exciting.
Yeah. Oh,
Oh,
yeah, it'll really shift things inside. It's really, I mean, it was my saving grace. I had such a severe tongue tie. She was like, "Whoa." Usually when I see tongue ties that severe, like people's faces are so
yeah.
deformed.
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness.
They're
Well,
mushed. Yeah.
yeah, we've
Anyway.
got a lot more singing to do. And one of the other science things about the how you talked about the breath being below the diaphragm. It's below.
Hmm.
It's the muscles that corset
Yes.
lower abs, the
Yes.
transverse
The
abdominal
whole
muscles,
system.
and the obliques, and
Yes.
the two sides of the pelvis, those two bones of the pelvis,
Yes.
shift
That's right.
dramatically
That's right.
depending upon the way we breathe. So
Yeah.
I remember one surprising thing people of my age at least will remember is when in the 80s I would go to the vintage stores And the little dresses had waists this big, but they fit great elsewhere, but the waist was like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, those unevolved women, they probably pinched themselves and put them in their tiny little girdles. I'm so much more evolved, but my waist could not fit in it. And now that I know, if you breathe differently, if you get that all the collaboration of the deep abdominal muscles with a full exhale, the body course. I was
Right.
just shocked to think culturally in less than 100 years how much the shape of our breath has changed the shape of our mouths, the shape of our
Hmm.
bellies. And so the
Hmm.
beautiful thing, though, is we are this amazing, adaptive, fluid design, and that we can change. You and I making these changes in our lives,
Yeah.
we never need to stop.
No.
Okay. And yeah, we're going to stop. We're going to stop this interview pretty soon, but I first want to make sure the audience knows all the way how, what are the first thing I heard you say that people could do is
Yeah.
feel themselves as they make sounds.
Yeah. Begin with humming,
Mm.
breathing and humming.
The second thing is you have several beginning entry points to your work. You said that there's a Zoom, you have an online class that's live.
I have two of them. So I have my Monday night series, which is Sisters in Harmony Global, and I have guest song leaders that come on. And so that's every Monday night, either at 4 p.m. or 7 p.m. Pacific. And you just come on and you're on mute and you're just singing along with whoever's leading. And then I have my Art of Mindful Singing, which is more vocal meditation meets the fundamentals of singing and breathing. We do a lot of breathing in that course. And I have a free class, and then there's a 9-week series that follows that up. And that's a great, and I teach that course twice a year.
Okay, and that one is on your website, heatherhoustonmusic.com. All of
Correct.
your stuff.
Yeah.
What about listening to your music? What's the best place for that?
Spotify. Yeah.
Spotify.
Yeah. You can go to Heather Houston on Spotify or, iTunes, any of the streaming platforms, YouTube. And you can also listen to my a cappella quartet called Sirens, Sirenz.
Oh,
Yeah. So, a few different ways to listen to my music.
well, it's certainly been a pleasure. I learned so much, and I'm sure my audience has too. Uh, Thank you, Heather.
Oh, thanks for having me, Deborah. Such a pleasure.